We're up to Zrika Saddam here on the bottom right of page Yud. I don't remember if we spoke about Malika. If you happen to find that, I have the original. So if it's not in these photocopied pages, we can look in the original. So let's leave that for now. We'll come back to it, all right? If you find it, let me know. You can interrupt me at any point. Hakoin ochis bekli b'yad yamin, zorik min hakli al hamizbeach, chutz min hachatos, sheba hakoin tovel etzbo hayimonis b'dam umazel. So all karbonos requires rika min hakli. That's called zorik min hakli. The exception is a chatos. And chatos requires not zrika min hakli, but rather maze. Maze means he sprinkles it. So he dips his finger in the dam. Again, you're talking about his right finger. And he goes like that. And he shoots it off. V'chol karbonos, hakrevim b'mizbeach achitzon. So we're talking about basically everything except for, those rare karbonos that require mizbeach hapnimi, chatos pnimios. Im nosa maton achas al mizbeach, kipru abailin v'karvim kosher. So that even though, let's say, l'chatchila, we require 4 matanos, but 1 matana suffices and is critical, so for the Eved, we can rely on one matan. And again, we'll see the exception in the case of chatos pnimis. So if you look at the footnote here, which is note number Kuf Pei Vav, he adds that b'shara karbonos af b'ofen shenosim matana achas tzorchit matana kineged hayisod. In other words, it's not an absolute free, laissez-faire attitude that any matana, one matana will salvage and achieve kapara. You need a matana kineged hayisod. Lo nemar bodin matana kineged hayisod. B'chatos the arba kronos achas mehem ein lo yisod. In the case of chatos, you require 4 matanos on 4 kronos, on the 4 corners of the mizbeach, and yet on 1 corner there's no yisod. So therefore, the Keren Orah has a suffix im gam matana achas b'keren she'ein lo yisod mechaperes kidin zrika b'mkomo. But since we saw already a precedent in chatos that you could have at least 1 matan of the 4 matanos of chatos, which is shalo kineged. So then when we go back to the other karbonos, where 1 matan is sufficient, could that matana be shalo kineged yisod? But this footnote doesn't really add anything to the simple, basic rules that we're trying to establish. Chatos hapnimios matana achas ma'keves, which, if I understand that correctly, means you need 4 matanos on 4 kronos, and nothing less will do. It's all or nothing, all or bust, I guess you'd say. And this is a reflection of a Mishnah on Daf. What does it say there? Lamed Zayin, I think it says. We'd have to look that up inside. But all that is a reflection of Beis Hillel. Beit Shammai holds that even in a chatas chitzona, you need at least 2 matanos. So according to Beis Hillel, in a chatas chitzona, you require 1 matana, and that's critical. In a chatas chitzona, in a chatas pnimis, then you require all 4 matanos. Then you have a middle of the way sheet of Beis Shammai, that in a chatas chitzona, you need 2 matanos. Now that's as far as chatas. Then we get to Ola, Osham, Shlomim. They require Zrika al Mizbeach. Now this is all a chatchila in the ideal sense. Shtaim shein arba. Matana achas bezovus on Mizbeach mizrachas tzfonis. Matana shni bezovus on Mizbeach ma'arobus dromis. And since he does the matana on the 90-degree corner, it's as if it went on both sides. So that's how he covers all 4 sides of the Mizbeach. Now, when he gets to the matana shniya, then he does ma'arobus dromis. Before he did Mizrachas Tzfonis. Now he does Ma'arabas Dromis. So he's covered all 4 sides of the Mizbeach. Longer chaf, which is a way of saying a 90-degree angle. V'nimtza shenitan adam be'arbat stodei Mizbeach. Nechlaku tanoim im zrika zu shel achas shishtayim nosna b'tzad echad shel Mizbeach mafsik v'chozer v'zorik b'tzad sheni o shel oved zorek zricha achas u'mechaven sheyispasha et hadam b'shnei atzodim shebezovus. So let's see if we can figure out this machlokes, which is in Zvachim Nun Gimel Amid Beis. According to one opinion in the Tanoim, he covers one side of the Mizbeach with those 2, right, those 2 sides. He takes a break, then he goes back to the second Zrika. Fine. Now we have another Shita that Zorik Zrika Achas u'mechaven sheyispashet adam b'shnei tzodim shebezovus. Let's just read a little bit weiter. Maybe we'll figure this out. La'locha zorek ha'oved zrika achas. So obviously, based on the Rambam, he's passing like the second the latter presentation of the Machlokes Tanoim. So Oved Zorek Zrika Achas. So what was the first shita? Maybe that's what we didn't understand properly. Nosno v'tzad echad shel hamizbeach mafsik v'chozer v'zorek v'tzad sheni. So what's Achashen Shtayim? It sounds like he's requiring 2 separate zrikos. I don't know. I thought the whole point of Achash Shtayim means all you need is 1 zrika. Now he's saying, no, you need 2 different zrikos, according to that first side. want to look in Nun Gimel and Beis. I mean, the easier way of doing this would be if we looked in Mishnayos. But it's always problematic when they tell you the Amud in the Bavli and they don't tell you where it is in the Mishnayos. So for that, you need to get both the Gemara and Mishnayos. But maybe we won't need the Mishnayos. Maybe the Gemara will be good enough. You have this picture here. Dayan Shein Arba, Safon, and Mizrach. Right? Yes, Safon and Mizrach. We saw the ear. So that we said was Nun Gimel and Beis, right? So I might ask you to look in the Mishnayos here, but unfortunately, this might not be a Mishnah. What? It might be a Bryce. Let's see. I got it. This is Masechet the Menachos. We need Masechet Zvach.
Oh,
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So what do we say? Nun Gimel and Beis? Oh, so it's the fifth parak of Zvachim. And it looks like it's midway through the parak. This is called Ezu Makom Shel Zvachim. That may be familiar for you from the Karbonos that we were saying. So if you want to open up to parak Hey in the Mishnayos, if you get Kahati, it's always the easiest. He says, Domaton Shtei Matonos Shehein Arba. So Rashi says, we carry Mizrachas Tzfonis, we carry Marobis Dromis, Shekinegda Balakson. So there's a, what's it called? What's the word in English for Alakson? The line through a square that goes on an angle. Diagonal. So it's on a diagonal. Echi Ovid, Omer Abnoson, Bechozer Benoson. Shmuel Omer Matana Achas Kimin Gama Benoson. Kitanon. Yochel Yizreken Zrika Achas Tamalom Sovi. Isov Yochel Yakifenu Kechut Amazorko Ketzek Kimin Gama. Matana Shein Abra Bishmol Omer Nemerkan Soviv. Nemerlalan Soviv Malahalan Pisuk the Arba Matonos, Afkan Pisuk the Arba Matonos. Do you have by chance an art school on Zvachim here? We're doing Gimel and Beis. Dalid Nifsokos Zumizu. The Ha al Arba Kronos Nosi. Don, so you missed a little bit before, but we're trying to figure out in all karbanos, other than chatos, we have a halacha called shtayim shehein achas. So we're trying to figure out what that means. We always assumed, and that's how we pass it, that Shtaim Sheinachas means he does one zrika on the corner, and the dam, dribbles down to both sides, and he does that, on the diagonal as well. But now we have another mandir. That seems to be Rabbi Shmuel. He says, no saying, at each corner, the Kohen applies the blood to the wall along one side of the corner, and then applies the blood again to the wall on the other side of the corner. So what does Shtayim Shenachas mean? Thus, he says in the footnote, there were actually 4 separate applications performed at the 2 corners. This is also, I think, the Shita Rabbi Shmuel. See? Says the chatas has its blood applied to each of the 4 corners of the altar. Thus, we learn from Xeris Shava, according to Rabbi Shmuel, that the Ola also has its blood applied in a like manner. So again, Rabbi, the only thing I can say, I don't know if this is correct or ridiculously wrong, is that according to Rabbi Shmuel, this is not Shtaim Shein Achas. It needs 4 separate zrikos. So I don't know why you call it Shtaim Shein Achas. Next. Zrikas Adam bi Ola Osham Shlamim Nases Michetzi HaMizbeach Ulamata. Who Makom HaYisod. Right, the Mizbeach is divided into 2, and the Zrika in all these karbonos, with the exception of Chatos, has to be on the bottom half of the Mizbeach. Bechor Maser U Pesach, karbonos Bechor Maser U Pesach, Te'une Matona Achas Bilvad, the Echad Stodi Mizbeach, Bilvad Shehu Keneged HaYisod. You find one corner, he doesn't tell you which corner you're going to choose. That's where you do the matana. But it's got to be Keneged HaYisod. Matana zu shel bechar u'maser pes nechel b'tanoim im nitanim b'shvicha al hakir here mizbech o b'zrika. Now, there's 2 ways of understanding the case of matana in bechar maser pes. One shita is shvicha, means he pours it gently onto the wall of the mizbeach, the outer wall of the mizbeach, and the other bandiyam is zrika. He takes it from the kli and he throws the dam with a certain force. And la'alacha, it seems that according to the understanding of the Lechem and the Rambam, the Pesach requires shvicha, but Bechor and Maser requires zrika. Keren Orah says, Kula nitanim lechatchila b'shvicha. So zrika is not the preferred way of doing it. Again, all this is relevant to Bechar, Maser, and Pesach. Now, nechleku tanoim, b'karbonos shedina b'zrika, v'nosna b'shvicha, im yotza b'di'eved lo. We have 2 shitas whether or not shvicha is absolutely invalid. And we pass in Halacha apparently in Tzli Mikdoshim Perek Beis that b'di'evet shvicha is sufficient, and that will substitute for zrika b'di'evet. Yesh mi shekosv gam matana zu shel bechor maser pesach te'una nesina al zavis hamizbeach. So it means that the matana of bechor, there's only one matana that we require in bechor maser pesach, but that matana should be identical to a matana of any of the other karbonos. It requires the sinal zavis hamizbech at the 90-degree corner of the mizbech. It's not enough that he puts the dam on the side of the mizbech, the facade of the mizbech. It's got to be at the corners, one of the 90-degree angles. The sina zu shel b'chor maser pesach tzor sheyitna al chelek hamizbech shemichetzio ulamata. That's not such a big chiddush. Atos chitzona shenase b'mizbech achitzon ton arba matonos bi arba kronos hamizbech. So there are no shortcuts in the case of chatos chitzona. In truth, according to one Tana, that was Rabbi Shmuel, even in Ola Oshem Ushlamim, he needs 4 matanos on 4 corners. But that's only lechatchila. In the other karbonos, Ola Oshem Ushlamim, b'di'eved, he can be yotze with 1 matana. Not so in the case of chatos chitzona, where he needs matanos on all 4 kronos as a critical requirement of the avodas hadam. Mokom kronos. Kronos hamuros bechatos. Now we have to see why he mentions chatos. Nechleku b'tanoim im hakavana bazeh rakli arba kronos hamizbeach haboltos min hamizbeach lemalo. Right, there are 2 parts of the when you have, let's say, the kosel of the mizbeach on the mizrach side, and you have the kosel of the mizbeach on the safon side, and they meet together. Does the zrika have to be exactly where they meet, but on the lower part of the mizbeach? And the lower part of the mizbeach is what's called boletes. It extends beyond the walls of the mizbeach. And the other side is to say no, that even, let's say, higher up on the mizbeach, you can place the dam on the koslei of mizbeach, on the flat facade of the mizbeach, and that's called kronos, even though there's not boltos. L'shitas hasover shegam zavios shel koslei of mizbeach kriod kronos lemata domim shel chatos. See, it's enough that it's the koslei of mizbeach, even if they're not boltos. Netluku amorav im hakavana lechuda shel zavis hamizbeach. O shegam ha'ama krova lechuda shel mizbeach Nikres Keren. Again, you're at the point where the two flanks, let's say the east and the north, hit each other at a 90-degree angle, but it's higher up on the Mizbech and there's no boltos. And here we have an issue. If you don't require boltos, does that mean that you don't require chud ha-mizbeach? So there's one shita that says we need chuda shel mizbeach, exactly the point where the two flanks meet at that 90-degree angle. The other mandiover says no, an ama krovel of chuda shel zavis. That's also called a keren. All right. Let's see if we can fit in one more paragraph here. L'shitas hasover, kronos hamuris bechatos hanuga kronos haboltos min hamizbeach lemalo. Nechleku ba im lechatchila mitzvah shite bechuda shel keren, o me'achas shunosem bekrona bekeren aboletes, ein din chuda yacholite gam bekotzle hakeren. Meaning, now that we're holding that boltos is enough, so the chronos of boltos are also considered chronos. Do we need chuda shel keren? Or do we say that once you have boltos, that substitutes for the requirement of chuda shel mizbeach? And therefore, he could place the dam on the kosel hakeren. So it means that the requirement of chuda, according to that man Diomar, in the case of chatos, only applies when there's no boletes. But if there's boletes, then you don't require chuda, according to one side. Now, all this is before Tosfos. So tomorrow, we'll have a fresh start with Shita Santos. Make a note of where we got up to. I think, Steve, it might be an idea that we keep walking around. We shouldn't have to every time go out and look for it.